Welcome. My name is Doris Charest, and this is my exhibit called Overlooked, and it's about all the nature and the small parts of nature that we often overlook, that we never really see, because when we go on walks, we kind of just walk on by and don't see a thing, right? And so when I do my walks, I have started picking up small little objects, and then I thought, what do I do with them? And as an artist, you're always a pack rat, so that's kind of a thing. So anyways, I thought about it for quite a while, and then I came up with the idea of eggs. Mostly because there was a robin's egg in my backyard that had broken and fallen on the ground, and all bits of nature had collected in it already. So I thought, oh, that's a great idea. So nature provided my original idea. And this is the first piece I created. They're just regular eggshells, and I put small bits of nature and then poured resin on top. And the beauty of it is the resin magnifies the color, and it magnifies the shape, the size almost. So you can see it that much better. So that was really good. This piece I've exhibited for a little while, and I did win a prize for this, so I was pretty happy with the International Society of Experimental Artists. So, and it was second in show. And then I thought, well, these are really small. I'd like to go bigger. And so I thought of an idea of getting an ostrich egg, and I ordered one from actually South Africa, and it never came. But I had a friend give me an ostrich egg, so I made a mold of it. And I used, instead of breaking it up and using the actual egg, I thought, well, it would wreck the egg, and the egg is so nice, I don't want to do that. So I made a mold. I learned how to make molds. I didn't know how in the beginning. And then I started filling the shells with stories. And basically, each of these shells is a story that I invented in my own head. And I would like other people to interpret their own stories that go with it. So they're bits of nature from my walks and other people's walks, because some people contributed to it. And it's been really fun doing this. So the technical side is these are plaster, and then I put them in the mold, and then you let it harden, and then you make the edges, and then you use a spackle to cover all the places where it didn't go so well. and then you sand it, and you do that 2-3 times, and in the end you have your shell. And then mostly I collage on the inside, and then I add the pieces of nature. Sometimes it's paint, but mostly it's collage, because I used to do collage, and I have these bins of collage papers still that, artists also don't throw away things. So and then I picked up pieces of nature like this, and I was playing with my glue gun one day, and I noticed it could make shapes, so I turned it into a lace-like shape, and then it looked good on that stick, and I just kept adding to it until it looked good.
Neat.
And I got bored with shells after a while, so I went back to painting, because I'm normally a painter, and this is called Thunderstorm, and it's all about the good things that this dreary, dark cloud will bring. So at the bottom, I have all the pieces of different plants and paintings I did of plants or insects or different effects that I see on the ground after a rain. So that's what I put there. And here I can't do it, but if you put a light behind there, it actually, a heavy light, I didn't have one, so it looks like it's actually raining. So, because the piece is actually on fabric, and it's acrylic on fabric, so it's kind of fun. So, and then over here, influenced by, you know how when rain comes and it swirls everything around, there's always like a puddle of something that gathers together, and that's my influence there. And I was obsessed with white and those sticks for a while. I think I'm over it now. But that's why I use those sticks. I really like the white effect, and it looks great.
Beautiful.
The shadows is what I really like of these pieces that I've created like this. And if you shine a light this way, it looks like a castle.
Whoa.
Like, it's really interesting when you shine the light. I participated in a show with the Japanese Gardens in Lethbridge, and what they asked us is to pick up pieces of material that you found at the gardens and create a piece from it. So this is all stuff that I collected while I was there, and this was mostly in those sand gardens. So I wanted to recreate the sand part, and it was really tough. So I put resin, and then I dropped sand on it, and to kind of have a look. It was a tough one, but anyways, you know how artists are. They keep persevering. And once you get an idea in your head, you can't stop. So anyways, so that's the almost overall. These pieces, I wanted something different than the hanging shells. So I put a few of them together in a grouping. And the interesting part is having them stick to the board. So I ended up using magnets to hold them on. And I started with little magnets. I should have bought the big ones. But Lee Valley provides the best magnets, by the way, if you need to know. And then you put them back.
That's such a great idea.
And you can rearrange them any way you want. So, so I thought that was a different way to show those shells too. So, because I'm normally a painter and I'm moving into a different direction, I need some help. So I applied for a grant, and I got a grant to work with Lyndall Osborne. And she provided some great suggestions for me and started me thinking in a different way so that I could evolve some of these pieces the way they've become. And when I showed her my idea of these shells, because by the time I met her, I had already started making these, she says, yes, you have to jump on that one. And she provided me with so much technical knowledge that I didn't have. It really was a real benefit to work with her, and she's so nice on top of it. Yeah. Well, I chose that shape because you know how we go like this for something that's precious?
Yes.
And that was the whole idea, that you're looking at something precious within that shape, and then it kind of shows off the pieces in there a lot better. And these can be suspended in a room, and that's when the first time I had this show, you could walk through and look at all the pieces as they hung from the ceiling in the room. Anyways, that was quite fun, but I like the challenge of a new gallery, new way of putting things up, and then you just, you learn so much just doing that, and you get a different perspective on your show that way too. But you know how you go through phases. And I thought, what other thing can I create that would reflect that preciousness and hold things? So I thought the spoons would work. So these are mostly pieces of wood that I've collected. Here are some rusty nails that I also found. This one, I crocheted some metal to create that little basket in there. And pieces like this, that's a driftwood. And I was just learning needle felting at the time, and I thought the wool and the wood worked really well together. And then these are just two different pieces of wood that I put together and then just made a way to hang it up. The big one, it's a painter's brush, and this is handmade paper, because a long time ago I used to make handmade paper. And then the bulrushes seem to go with it really well. Yeah,
The little pieces coming through.
I put eggs in there.
I think it's awesome.
Because when you look through bulrushes, you kind of find things. It's interesting. Yeah. But actually, I couldn't have done these pieces without my painting skills. Because I used so many of them in those shells. There's collage in there, but I added paint. But I create my own collage papers too. So none of those shells could ever be reproduced because I just painted the papers just for that.
That's right.
So, all the little things you learn along the way, and then you put them together. And it really helps solve problems. When you get a problem, you think, oh, what could I do with that? Your head's full of things that you learned in the past that you can pull together to create whatever, solve the problem.
Yeah. Nothing's wasted, eh?
Nothing's wasted, yeah. Question?
Great.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much.